everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and you know what time it is. It's been Raw, it's been St. Patrick's Day. Let's forget all that nonsense, because it's time to take a look at this week's Monday Night Raw and assign each individual segment a lovely old grade, thereby determining how good the overall show was. It's just a simple concept, but a fun one as well. So let's get straight into it, and let's take a look at Monday Night Raw from Chicago, Illinois, graded. So we start the show with it's Brocky Les and Paulie H. They come down to the ring and they set things off with a lovely old classic heel promo. But one thing that I've liked about this feud so far between Lesnar and Rollins is the fact that Heyman in particular has used great logic, and so has Rollins against him. That thread continued here with Heyman saying, yeah, Rollins, you might have pointed out that Brock's found it more difficult to beat smaller guys like Styles, Bryan, Bálor, but guess what? He's beaten each and every one of them, which makes total sense. I love the little counter arguments going on in this storyline. He then questions why Rollins would demand a confrontation with Brock Lesnar on the same week of Monday Night Raw action that he's going to face Drew McIntyre. This brings out Drew, who says, yep, cheers, I am huge, thank you very much for the respect there, thank you for that, and then just gets decimated by Rollins, who jumps him with a chair from behind as revenge for what he did to Reigns and Ambrose last week on Raw. Rollins then it's just a relentless assault of chair shot after chair shot to the back, and there's a shot that was taken, I think it's out on Twitter somewhere, of the cameraman behind Rollins going, whoa, like as per Kevin Dunn's instrucciones. Rollins then gets in the ring and wants a fight with Lesnar, but Lesnar and Heyman back away, with Heyman being like, no, think about it, let's think this through, let's be clever about this. And they just leave Rollins in the ring with the steel chair, and it's quite high octane beginning to Monday Night Raw. Yep, I'm going to give this one a B+. I thought it was a pretty decent opening to the show. Heyman's great, you know, on the mic and everything. I just worried that it might have made Drew look a little bit weak, but his involvement in the night wasn't over, as we'll see later on. But was that a good thing or a bad thing? We'll see later on. I've already said that. Next up, we get tag team action. Braun Strowman and Finn Bálor taking on the IC champion Bobby Lashley and his hype man, Lio Rush. The crowd were up for this. This was a pretty hot opener. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. I especially enjoyed the little interactions between Braun Strowman and Lio Rush. They weren't just comedy, you're big, I'm small spots. They were quite weaved well into the fabric of the overall match too. Eventually Strowman did pick up the win, getting the pinfall on Lio Rush for his team, while Bobby Lashley just turned tail and just stood at the top of the ramp, unwilling to help out his manager, which I'm not sure whether that's a good or a bad thing, because I didn't like the inconsistency with Lio and Lashley falling out and then getting back together with no real explanation, and I'm worried that that's going to hint towards a repetition of that inconsistency. But at the same time, maybe it'll be a different angle, maybe it'll be a totally different branch of this whole storyline. We'll wait and see. On the whole, I am going to give this a B. It deserves more just on the basis of the match itself, but I was a little bit put off, as I say, by the whole aftermath, which I'm not quite certain about yet. I've got some reservations. Also, the way the match was set up was a little bit house showy. Didn't really feel like a TV event. It was really weird. So Bálor came out, cut a promo. He was cut off by the heels, and then Strowman came out to get the big pop because, you know, it's the monster. He's come to help Bálor out. But it didn't make sense in terms of Raw as a sequential, you know, as a sequence of events. Why would they not come out together if they're tag partners? It didn't affect things too much. I'm being a little bit nitpicky, but it did just take me out of it just a little bit. Next up, a moment of bliss with Alexa Bliss. Her guest was Elias. Oh, and she flirted with him, and it's just like, stop making Alexa flirt with dudes unless she's doing it to manipulate them and get her own way. It's not that difficult. Please, just let's have some character consistency, please. But yes, Elias is like, I am Elias, and Alexa's like, I'm Alexa, hey. And I was like, okay, can we get to the point? And then Elias announces himself as the headline, the #1 musical act of WrestleMania, and everyone's like, boo. And I imagine it somewhere at home, Flo Rida is shedding a single tear, and Pitbull as well, but there's no telling where he is. Flo Rida's probably in Florida, but Pitbull, as we all know, is Mr. Worldwide. Elias mocks the Chicago Bears, who got knocked out of the NFL playoffs in heartbreaking fashion last season, and the crowd are all like, boo! And then he says if anyone dares interrupt his performance at WrestleMania, he'll, and then he gets interrupted by No Way Jose's music, but it's not No Way Jose, it's Heavy Machinery, and the dancing was something to behold, especially from Otis Dozovic. But then the Cheeseburger, not Cheeseburger the Ring of Honor guy, the Cheeseburger in the conga line attacks Elias and pops off its mask and its costume, and it's No Way Jose, still with the weird Naomi hair, still with the weird dreads though. They have a short match, Elias wins it. Yeah, you know, the No Way Jose conga line people look disappointed on the outside, and so did I. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this a D-. The action in the ring was fine, like it was short, but it was totally fine, there were no mistakes, but the crowd were totally dead for this. They had their energy so sapped away by that weird, like, segment, the Moment of Bliss segment with Alexa and Elias, Heavy Machinery and stuff. All I was waiting for was Lacey Evans to walk out and go back, but she didn't, so, you know, that was something at least. Next up, well, let's talk about the most highly discussed and controversial topic to come out of this week's Raw. So, Kurt Angle hit the ring, and in a very short pre-match segment to his actual match this week, he announced that his opponent at WrestleMania was going to be Baron Corbin, and everyone just went, boo! What, Kurt? Now, before I say this, let's just make a few things clear, right? One, I like Baron Corbin, he's great at his job. Two, it does make storyline sense. You know, Kurt Angle and Baron Corbin, they've been rivals for months now. It would make sense that Angle would want to beat him. But, well, I've prepared a little list of people that I just would rather see against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania. These first few have storyline reasons or some sort of history with Kurt Angle, but some of them are busy, so we're going to have to overlook that. But John Cena, number one, the one that everyone I think wanted. Daniel Bryan, but he's obviously got the title match. Brock Lesnar, but he's got the title match. Chad Gable, Angle's opponent this night. Shelton Benjamin, Samoa Joe, EC3, Bobby Roode, Shane McMahon, but he's got the Miz feud, and then just a few people who don't have any particular sort of background or history with Angle, but I'd just love to see that match. So Roderick Strong, Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne, Cesaro, Big E, Walter, Killian Dane, Matt Bloom, Mike Quackenbush, that huge 7-foot lad in the Performance Center, and Jimmy Uso. Not Jay though, just Jimmy. Jay and Angle just wouldn't work. Jimmy though. But I'm only going to give it the question mark grade. Why is that? Because I think it's a work. And if it's a work, I don't want to be giving it a bad grade when it's their attempt to get us more excited in the long run when the bait and switch takes effect, if you see what I mean. A few reasons that I think this is a work, right? They mentioned, they lampshaded the crowd being displeased by the decision, which I don't think they would do if Corbin was legitimately Angle's final opponent. I think they might have a match, but I think Angle could win in seconds and then someone else comes out to save the day. Another reason, Angle tweeted about it also being disappointing and not the result that the crowd wanted to see. And finally as well, I just feel like Corbin later on in the night wouldn't have said what he said if this was real. He came out and went, right, so give it up for me, Kurt Angle's opponent at WrestleMania, and he's using it to get heat. I don't think that's going to be the payoff. So question mark grade for me. We'll see if I'm right or not. So next up, yes, Chad Gable comes out, and it's one of those dream matches that we've all wanted. Some people thought it should be at WrestleMania if the storyline had been booked like a little further in advance to get us there. Gable clearly is honoured to be wrestling Angle in one of his final matches. Comes out in matching gear, like in the singlet and everything, and they have like a wrestling match, you know, a pretty good wrestling match. The crowd are a little bit dead apart, but they build up back towards it at the end. Angle gets the win after rolling out the way of a Gable moonsault and clamps on the ankle lock, and Gable taps out. Now, I'm going to give it a B because I think I enjoyed it more than a B, but Angle has slowed down quite a lot. But Gable wrestled his arse off to help keep Angle looking strong, and I don't have too many major complaints about it. I think there was a CM Punk chant at one point, and I just was a bit disappointed. I was like, come on, Chicago, this is Angle versus Gable. What are you doing? But yeah, it gets a B. Nice little moment, impossible to really dislike it. Next up, Sasha and Bayley hit the ring and they go, we're the Raw Women's Tag Team Champions. No, they're not. They're the WWE Tag Team Champions. That's right. In fact, that's the very point of their promo. They say they're going to not just appear on Raw, they're going to defend it on SmackDown. They've hinted at NXT in the past. They said this week that tonight, at the time of recording, they're going to be on SmackDown to face up to the Iconics, who've suggested that Sasha and Bayley have been ducking them. But Bayley and Sasha actually got cut off by Natalya and Beth Phoenix because Beth has had a fire reignited in her by that little brawl from the other week from Fastlane, and she wants a piece of the action. And she, along with Natalya, wants to become Raw Women's Tag. It's not the Raw Women's Tag. She wants to become the tag title winners, holders. They have a heated promo where everyone's a babyface, but they're annoying each other. They're saying the wrong things, and it all escalates quite nicely until eventually Natalya slaps Sasha. They have a little brawl, Bayley stands in front of Beth Phoenix and Beth shoves her and Bayley bumps like Shawn Michaels does off the Hogan shove at SummerSlam. Like, she almost rolls out the ring. It's fantastic. This all leads to a singles match between Sasha and Natalya, but it doesn't really last very long, only a minute or two, before Nia Jax comes along and causes the distraction at the top of the ramp, allowing Tamina to come in from the crowd, from the back, and beat up both women. And then she runs off and her and Nia stand at the top of the ramp and go, ha ha ha. And Tamina was showing a little bit more personality than usual. Like, that's not me being sarcastic. I know everyone rinses Tamina, but she genuinely was. I'm going to give this a B-, right? I saw this get absolutely destroyed online. Everyone was like, oh, this sucks. Where? Well, I thought it was fine, right? I think the way this is going, it looks like it's going to build up to a multi-team match at WrestleMania. Everyone seems to be panicking that they're just going to have a rematch. They're just going to be like Nia and Tamina against Bayley and Sasha once again. That worked at Fastlane, let's go. And it didn't obviously work that well at Fastlane, but people seem to think that's what WWE are going to do. I think there's too many teams in the mix for this to be just a straight tag team match. You've got Beth and Natalya, you've got the Samoan Slaughterhouse, you've got Bayley and Sasha, maybe a team or two from NXT as well, the Iconics on SmackDown talking trash. I think this is going to be fine, and I didn't mind Nia and Tamina disrupting things here to keep themselves in the title picture, especially with Tamina showing a bit more character. Was it the hoodie she was wearing? She was dressed a bit different. Maybe it was that. I don't know, I just didn't have a major problem with this, so it does get a B-. Next up, Ricochet versus Jinder Mahal, a fresh singles match that I've never certainly seen before, but it wasn't, the same level of excitement as many Ricochet matches. I'm only going to give it a B- and 4. Oh, by the way, Ricochet won. Of course he did. I'm only going to give it a B-, sadly, because I just feel like, I've seen so many Ricochet matches in my life now. Honestly, I can see why someone who only watches Raw and SmackDown might look at this match and go, oh, that was awesome. That was a great match. And it was a good match. It was good, right? The two worked together well. But, we've seen Ricochet have excellent matches even a few days ago on NXT. He was in that wonderful tag team match. So this match felt a little bit thrown together, a little bit pointless. It didn't have the backing of a storyline. And even though they both did some moves well and everything, I could only give it a B- because it just didn't do that much for me, okay? I don't want to be a dick. I've seen so many Ricochet matches. Live, on TV, on the network for $9.99. Too much Ricochet. Next up, Ronda Rousey versus Dana Brooke, and Dana did everything right in this segment, literally everything right. She came out, Ronda was there, Ronda beat her in 25 seconds, and Dana put her over huge. The first bump that Dana takes in this match, watch it, she goes for it, and Ronda looks like a monster. It's fantastic. She taps out to the armbar, Ronda keeps it on for too long, gets out the ring, she's confronted by security, bang, has a little fight with security. Travis Browne, her husband, is behind the barrier and just lays out a member of security. He is, of course, an MMA fighter also. And then he lifts Ronda over the barrier and they just walk out. And I just don't know what to think about this. After quite a lot of deliberation, right? I really thought about this when I was writing these notes. I'm gonna give it a C+, which sounds harsh considering how much I enjoyed the Dana Brooke aspect of the whole thing. But I don't want, this is a lot of guesswork again of what's going to happen at WrestleMania, but I don't think the idea to involve Travis Browne at this late stage was the right one. I feel like, this storyline has had too many distractions, and it should have just been Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte. You could even argue just Ronda and Becky, but, that's by the by. We've got Charlotte in there now, and it should have just been between those three, and it should have had a lot of the fat trimmed away from it. But I think, to involve Travis Browne, it's just not a great look, especially for the first ever women's main event, if it does still main event, of WrestleMania history and all this sort of stuff. If he gets involved in the match, is that going to take away from it? I'd say it probably will. I just don't know if I agree with getting him involved at this late stage of the storyline. Next up, Baron Corbin versus Apollo Crews. Baron, as I mentioned earlier, is like, I'm Kurt Angle's opponent at WrestleMania, and to get heat, which is why I don't think it's going to happen. He's facing, right, here we go, here's another thing, he's facing Apollo Crews and loses. He gets rolled up, he gets cradled. So, would Kurt Angle's opponent at WrestleMania lose to Apollo Crews later on the same night as the match was announced? I don't think so. Wake up, sheeple. I don't want to sound like some kind of conspiracy theorist. But yeah, this match gets, a D+. Again, the action was fine, but it was just odd. And the crowd was so dead for it, man. They were so quiet. They did pop for the finish, though. I've given it a plus instead of just a D. I've given it a D+, because the finish was genuinely quite fun and exciting, where Apollo just rolled him up out of nowhere, cradle, 1, 2, 3. The crowd went, way! And all laughed. But again, laughed at Kurt Angle's opponent for WrestleMania. Angle appeared to congratulate Apollo at the top of the stage. Nice for him. Bad for Corbin. We'll see where it goes. Next up, we have a live interview via satellite. Michael Cole is interviewing Batista. Like, Michael Cole's sat at the commentary desk still, and Batista's off in his office, which is awesome. It's so good. He's sat there in this lavish kind of office, dressed to the nines, looking awesome, just so cool. Like, just healing it up so much. It's great. Cole goes, where did your issues with Triple H start? Was it back in Evolution? And Batista goes, no, it was before Evolution. All he's ever done was take me under his wing and try and use me as a meat shield and, you know, a muscle man and someone to protect him from all of his opponents. And I hate him. And Michael Cole's like, oh, but Triple H is the babyface in this storyline, Dave. No, he doesn't say that, but that's basically, you know, what's going on. Batista says, you know what? Imagine your boss, right? Your mentor has raised you to be nothing, and then you become the successful one. And he says this sat in this like lavish thing. It's great. And then, you know, you're the successful one, and now I hope that Vince McMahon wakes up and fires Triple H after WrestleMania. I was like, yes, Dave is just cutting loose. It was great. I don't want Vince to fire. I don't actually want him to get fired. He's a fantastic booker. Love NXT. But the point is, this was a great heel promo. The only issue I have, and this is why I'm giving it a B+ instead of something in the A bracket, that's basically because the crowd were chanting CM Punk at one point. I assume they couldn't hear or maybe see Batista, and they got bored during the promo and just decided to chant CM Punk, because that's what you do in Chicago. But I do feel like it took away a little bit. It was a little bit of a distraction from what was otherwise a very good and intense promo from big old Davey B. And finally, the main event of the evening, Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. Now, Drew cut a good heel promo beforehand saying, you know what, Roman, don't even bother trying to come for me at WrestleMania. Look at your wife, look at your family, and just realize that it's for the best if you don't step up to, you know, I'm Drew McIntyre, I'm a giant, huge Scottish man. You know, it's a fair point. I don't think Roman's going to back down though. Just got a hunch, guys. Seth Rollins comes out. They have a match that's, well, it's intense and good. They brawl in the aisleway to start. When things get in the ring, it's still good. It's the finish that bothers me and the booking. So I'm going to give it a C+, because what happened was, right, the match was great, as a match between Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre would be. Fantastic stuff. The issue lies in the finish. Now, Rollins got distracted when Brock Lesnar came out, and basically it was very non-road to WrestleMania, basically. It didn't feel grand or spectacular. It was Lesnar, Brock Lesnar, the ass kicker, distracting his opponent so that he gets beaten. So Rollins turned back around into a Claymore from Drew, ate the pinfall, and that was it. And you've got your main big challenger losing on the road to WrestleMania. And I just don't know if that's a wise move. That's why it gets a C+ from me, because as much as I enjoy the action, I had to question the decision to put Drew over. And I like Drew, but in this instance, I think he should have lost. So overall then, let's take a look at my final grade for Monday Night Raw from Chicago, Illinois. I'm going to give it a B-. Usually, this was like a backwards Raw. Usually Raw is all over the place. It's got ups, it's got downs, it's got peaks, it's got troughs, it's got loud bits, it's got quiet bits, unless we're in Lafayette. Usually Raw is very inconsistent, often to its detriment, sometimes to its benefit. This Raw was very consistent. Like, the grades are far less all over the place than usual. There were one or two missteps, but largely I did enjoy the show. But the key misstep was probably Rollins losing. But apart from that, you know what? I don't have any major complaints. It was fine. It was a fine show on the road to WrestleMania. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.